All right, perfect. So, hi everyone. And Leo, I just saw you're in the chat. You say, "Hey, am I here?" I see you, and you are here. So, welcome everyone to our guest Q&A on Sobriety Engine. We have Emily Paulson here, and so Emily is the author of Highlight Reel: Finding Recovery, Honesty, and Recovery Beyond the Filtered Life. Emily is a writer, a speaker, a certified professional recovery coach, a She Recovers designated coach, a This Naked Mind Institute trainee, and a member of the long-term recovery community. She's formerly trained as a chemist, and a teacher. She rose to success in the top tiers of a skincare company where she gained her voice and a platform for sobriety and healing. Sober since January 2nd, 2017, her recovery path is focused on ruthless honesty, grace, and self-love. She is passionate about connecting women with resources for recovery from trauma, eating disorders, substance abuse, and believes that sharing our truth with each other is the best resource of all. And you're in Seattle and you have 5 kids. Wow.
Yes,
So
I do.
what don't you have going on?
I don't have a lot of free time right now.
All right, fair enough. So wow. I mean, I want to just kind of jump into how you got here and kind of what, I mean, because that's a lot. And if it wasn't for recovery, I'd be like, okay, where did this woman have time to even drink?
Yep.
So kind of how did it all start, and kind of take us through that a little bit.
Yeah. I can look back and see that my drinking was always problematic. But it wasn't really until I became a mom that it escalated. And it really was, just the idea that I needed to drink to survive parenting. That 5 o'clock glass of wine turned into 4 o'clock, turned into maybe a bottle. And I just really got roped into that. But I also felt very validated that I kind of wasn't the only one doing that. You see all the jokes and the memes, and
Right.
and any question that I had that it was a problem was always answered by the camaraderie of all the people around me. But then it turned into something that I would drink before I went out to meet friends, or I would drink when I got home. And so what my drinking looked like wasn't really obvious to anybody else but me.
Sure.
And so, I did all the Google searches, am I an alcoholic? And I could always find 1 or 2 things that, kept me out. Like, oh no, I don't come from a family.
Right. Like we can rationalize anything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. And I could stop. I could stop for a week at a time, a month at a time. I mean, I stopped 5 times for, 5 pregnancies at 9 months at a time. So to me, that always made me think I must not have a problem. And it wasn't really until I started having consequences, marriage problems with friendships, problems with the law,
Right.
and then realized like, I can't stop.
Right.
And so finally, after, many rock bottom moments, it was just finally enough for me to march into AA and say, this is it. I got to be done with this.
So what was that like? And I mean, I'm not a parent, so I can't even imagine. And you have 5 kids. So getting sober as a parent, I mean, how did you kind of balance that? Because when I got sober, it was like, this was my entire life that I had to, and you have 5 little humans that you have to raise, what was that even? Oh my gosh.
Well, when I stopped drinking, I realized how much time I spent drinking and thinking about drinking. And so the amount of time that it actually freed up was incredible. I mean, yes, it was a process and it was hard, but it did free up so much mental energy and so much emotional energy that I really started to realize, again, looking back, like, wow, I was spending a lot of time escaping. Right. I was spending a lot of time out of the house, thinking about when I was going to get my next drink, thinking about, I need to go to the store to pick up a bottle of wine. And so I looked back and wondered, like, how did I find the time to drink so much?
Right.
And so I just put that much time into my recovery.
Okay. That makes sense. And I mean, did you, and okay, wait, I want to go to your book because first of all, like any, and sorry, there's a dog in here.
It's okay.
Any, like, were you an author before? Like how did you even get to that point of, okay, now
Right.
I'm sober. Now I just want to write a book. I mean,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, just one of these things. It's always something I've had like on my vision board to write a book. But
okay,
yeah, I've always been a person who's written, when I was younger in high school and in college, I was told that I was a good writer, but it's just nothing I ever nurtured.
mhm,
And so I always journaled. I was always the person who was writing myself emails to remember later. I would get out my feelings on paper or on the computer. So I was always a person who kind of processed things through writing. And
right,
when I got sober, that's one thing I really started doing, was not only like when I was working the steps, but when I was working with a therapist, going back into my past and, trying to figure out old patterns and going through all of these things. It kind of became just a stream of consciousness journal.
okay,
And so, 2 years into this, I had a lot of info. And so at this point, I was kind of like, I want to do something with this. And reading memoirs, reading all the Quitlets and listening to all the podcasts and all the content that was out there, for me, I kind of wanted to pay it forward because that was all so helpful for me. And I thought, if there's just another story out there that gives someone else the courage to share theirs or to feel some sort of camaraderie when they're maybe going through the same thing.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, I started the
So,
process.
and how cathartic was that for you? I mean, and I have not read your book, so I need to, but and is it kind of, and the title of it, Unfiltered Life,
Mhm.
it, what kind of does that mean? Because when and obviously, like, I don't judge a book by its cover, but
Mhm.
I see, like, okay, this filtered life of social media, pop culture, everything of how we're supposed to be and how we make things out to be. And this person's telling us to do this and this person's telling us to do that. But really, it's about being authentic and our individual selves, especially with recovery, you know.
Mhm.
So I guess, what did that mean to you, and highlight real recovery? I mean, what is that, you know, how did
Yeah.
you come up with that?
So when I first got sober and I started just kind of slowly telling my story and slowly telling people on social media, and part of it for me was the accountability piece, because
Yeah.
I knew keeping it secret and trying to contain it, trying to do it myself was not working. And
Right.
so it became for me really important to be honest about it and be honest about what I've been going through, because I knew that the secrets didn't help, didn't
Yeah.
help anything. And so when I was doing some training and speaking, and I started sharing my story, and I referred to my highlight reel, which was my social media page, where, oh, look, this picture is what I posted, but I also got arrested that night, or I posted this photo, and this happened. I went to the hospital, or whatever, and so it just became this. Let's show what's real, and so it kind of morphed into that and became the title of my book. But
Okay.
if you would have followed me on social media, you would have thought, oh gosh, she's got these great kids, this great life, she's doing really well, and her career, and it just wasn't the truth. I mean, yes, all those things were true, but it was not showing the full picture of what was going on.
And I feel like when we do, and I know a lot of people do that, right?
Hmm.
My life looks so much better on Instagram than it does
Oh yeah.
sitting at home on my couch, right? Watching, like, eating bonbons and watching Jeopardy, like, but for me, and I know for a lot of people, it's like, okay, well, my life looks really great on here. So it's okay for me to go have a drink or, do whatever. And so that is, I've relapsed a lot of times, and it turns into this, like, self-sabotage cycle, right?
Hmm.
And not only social media, but just in general, like, rationalizing. And I mean, I can talk myself into anything, and I can talk myself out of anything. Is
Hmm.
that something that you ever struggled with? And obviously we're talking about social media, but and I would say the wine mom culture. I mean, oh my
Hmm.
gosh.
Yeah. I would say that's really true, because it's one thing when you're putting yourself out there, or presenting yourself in whatever way, and if it's not congruent with who you really are,
Yeah.
You know, not only do you have this comparison trap with all the other bajillion people on social media, but when you don't even match up with the person you are showing people that you are,
Yeah.
it's a really screwed up. And so not only is it hard for other people who are like, oh, look at her go on this fun trips and look at this and look at that, and she's having so much fun. Well, they didn't see me blackout drunk in the evening. They didn't see me having a
Right.
fight with my husband. You know, nobody posts all that stuff. And even now, I think it's so important to talk about, like, I'm a super authentic person on social media now, but even still, there's still things I'm not going to post on social
Well,
media. And there's just, you
sure.
know, like,
Absolutely.
there's like a line.
Right.
And so to take anything with a grain of salt, but also, you know, just to be okay, you know, with your own path. And I think that's one thing that this pandemic, with a lot of drinking at home and the quarantini memes and all that stuff, it's been really important to remind myself why I chose this path,
Mm.
because it can be hard. It's like this, we've never faced this before. And I can't imagine, actually I can, like, I can't imagine what it would be like if I was drinking right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be drinking a lot, all the time. There would be, you know,
Nonstop. Yeah.
yeah.
Wait, quarantine. I haven't even seen any quarantini memes, but wait, what are those?
I don't know what the recipe is, but
I
it's the
want to
joke. Like,
know.
this is your quarantine martini is the quarantini. I mean, I like a fun joke, you know, funny joke as much as the next person, but
Sure.
you know, there's just a lot out there where it's kind of turning one problem into another problem.
Yeah.
And you know, I do worry, and I see it in just recovery coaching that I'm doing. People who are like, wow, I'm starting to drink a lot more,
Mhm.
or I thought I was a social drinker and now I'm not social, and yet I'm still drinking. I'm drinking more than ever. You know,
Right.
what the heck is going on? So I wonder, when we go back to real life, whatever that's going to look like, if people are going to realize that it's more of a problem than they thought.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I really don't think, life is ever going to be the same. I mean, um,
Mm-hmm.
and especially I think in the recovery community,
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, anxiety is high, stress is higher, depression is
Mm-hmm.
higher. I've experienced a little of that myself, and um, sure, I found online meetings, and Zoom meetings and everything is great, but it's like that person to person or just
Mm-hmm.
in person type thing. For me, it was like, okay, the first couple months I was like, yeah, like Zoom meetings from my couch, right?
Yeah.
But now it's like, man, like I miss just seeing someone not on a computer.
Giving someone a hug. You
Yeah.
don't realize, I never thought I was a hugger. And now I'm like, God, it would be so nice to just give someone a hug. And you're right. It's like the mental and emotional stress of being isolated.
Mhm.
I think it is causing people to kind of double down on bad habits. And
Yeah.
I'm not exercising as much. I'm not, doing the things that, I'm still, doing things that I know help my recovery path, but at the same time, nothing's the same.
Right.
And, so I think people are having to find different ways, different outlets. And I agree with you. Like, I love that there's so many meetings online, and I think it's fulfilled a need that was there, that I'm glad there, hopefully there will be Zoom meetings forever. And, for people who can't get to meetings or can't get childcare, I do think there's a need there, but it's not the same for those of us who are used to walking in the doors. It's not the same.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And on our, on Sobriety Engine, our platform, there's a lot of people that, either have never been to AA
Mm-hmm.
or don't like AA, or
Mm-hmm.
do another type of recovery approach. And still, and there are other people that also struggle day in and day out. I relapsed today, and I'm at home and I'm on a Zoom meeting. Like, what kind of suggestions? And some of them, it's like self-sabotage. Some of them, it's an unresolved trauma. I guess, and this is like a huge question, but like, what kind of tips, and what do you do that you did when you got sober that you still do
Mm-hmm.
today, and what kind of tips, I guess, do you have for that?
Yeah. One of the most helpful things that I use, I still do, and I use with all of my coaching clients, is journaling.
Mm,
And, specific things, it doesn't have to, you don't have to sit and write for hours, but
right.
I have people write down how they feel in the morning and then how they feel before they go to bed and then whether they drank or not.
Yeah.
And it's kind of all about like collecting data and seeing the actual results of what you're doing.
Right.
And I say that because some people are like, oh my God, it's 5 o'clock. My intentions from this morning have run out, and I'm gonna have that bottle of wine or whatever.
Right.
And to really show people that like it didn't relax you, it didn't make you feel good, it didn't serve the purpose that you used it for. So I
Mhm.
think that can be really powerful. And then writing things that you're grateful for,
Mm.
because if
Oh,
you are stuck, like
yeah.
there's there are some days, because here I am, I'm home, the kids are all home, we're trying to do homeschool, like
Oh boy.
it's
God
a
bless
shit
you.
show. Like, yeah, it's not easy. It's not. I never wanted to homeschool my kids. They don't want to be homeschooled. So it's a high stress environment, right?
Yeah.
And even then, like, there's always something to be grateful for, even on the worst day, even if it's just, hey, I'm not sick,
Yeah.
or I still have a job, or whatever it is. Even the worst scenario, I think if you can start your day out with something positive, then your brain isn't going to be looking for negative things all day. If you wake up and you're like, I feel like crap, I drank again last night, I suck, your brain's going to be looking for reasons that you suck all day long. And
Oh,
so if you
absolutely.
can just say, right,
Right.
like if you can wake up and be like, cool, you know what, I drank last night, and now I know, like, I learned I feel like crap again, and so today, what, I'm going to go for a walk this morning. It's going to be great. It's really sunny outside. Just the littlest things, just to kind of rewire your brain for the positive.
Mm.
Um, but that's really hard to do.
It's
You have to
oh,
really make yourself.
and and you are a chemist, right? So
Yeah.
also I like to think you probably know this, like inertia, right? Like an
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
object in motion loves to stay in motion. So
Yep.
if we're being positive and we continue this on a daily basis, it's gonna keep, but if
Yep.
it's gonna keep going, but if we're down on ourselves constantly, and the voices when we're down on ourselves are so much louder, I feel like,
Oh
than
yeah, it's momentum, right?
yeah.
I can talk myself out of not going to the gym when the gyms were open. If I haven't gone for a week, like, it's easy to not go for another day.
Right.
But if I'm in a routine, it's all about creating a routine, and to remember that you're not going to want to do this every day. You have to make yourself do something until it becomes just as automatic as like brushing your teeth, or it's just something you do and you don't think about, and it's not work. And so I always tell people, like, give yourself 5 minutes to write something down, and everybody has 5 minutes.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. If it's you should make your happiness a priority, right? Or your
Mm-hmm.
and yeah. Um anyway, so I also wanted to, in your bio you talked about eating disorders. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a huge thing that a lot of people don't talk about because it can be so shameful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for me, for the first time I went to treatment was for an eating disorder, and
Mm-hmm.
it switched to, after I got that under control, it turned to alcohol, it turned to drugs, it turned
Mm-hmm.
to everything. So I mean, is that, and I don't want to get personal, but is like that's something you've had a issue with, and how
Mm-hmm.
did you kind of climb out of that, if it is,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I feel like the issue wasn't alcohol. The issue wasn't the eating disorder. The issue was, right? So it was all the same things that I was doing these behaviors around, or using the drugs or whatever it was. And so I think for me, the alcohol really kind of replaced the eating disorder. And
Yeah, hello.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And honestly, I think right now, it is coming up for a lot of people.
Yeah.
This, being home and eating a lot more, and there are a lot of people who are finding that it hasn't been an issue for years, and it is again. And even me, like, putting on jeans, I'm like, oh God, like, maybe I shouldn't have done that,
Right, right.
and so kind of being gentle on yourself. But the hard thing about eating disorders is that, you know, alcohol, you can rid your house of it. Yes, it's easy to access. You can still go get it. You can still go buy it. but you have to eat, and you have to eat to live. And so it's not something you can ever just cut out of your life. You have to learn how to use it the right way. And then we're also plastered with all of these, like, no, do the paleo diet, do the keto diet. Oh no, here's the before and after. And I'm glad that's not my thing anymore. It's,
Right.
I do consider myself recovered from it, but it's still, I think it's in everybody's head a little bit that you're not necessarily eating the right way, or I think it's a really slippery slope right now with everybody at home and out of routine.
Yeah, and I think definitely, going back to the social media and the wine, and the comparisons, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
man, one negative belief, I will never be enough. These beliefs that we tell ourselves because of what we see, and trying to live up to these unrealistic expectations.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. I mean, it's just
Absolutely.
so unrealistic, and yeah, I mean, it's insane.
Yeah. I think the other crazy thing too, when we talk about like eating and dieting and the wellness industry, is that it's so acceptable to say, okay, don't eat dairy anymore, dairy's bad, or don't eat gluten anymore, or don't eat meat, or do eat meat and don't eat this and don't eat that. That's so acceptable. But when you tell somebody, don't drink alcohol, or I don't drink alcohol, that's just the craziest thing in the world. That the people are willing to do anything for a good before and after weight loss photo, but they're
Right.
not really thinking about health at the end of the day.
Right.
But
Sure.
I always think that's just
Yeah,
crazy. And yeah.
that's how our culture is built. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what's going on right now. And so when you were you part of that, I guess, when you stopped drinking and you were, I don't know if you were in the wine mom culture, or what, whatever, did you have friends that were, what did they think when you said, okay, I'm sober, like I have to get my shit together, and
Mm-hmm.
my life in order?
Yeah. So I have, friends kind of across the board. I had the friends that I drank with,
Yeah.
and the people who I sought out maybe because they drank a lot. And,
Mhm.
this is stuff you kind of find out after the fact, like, gosh, we don't have that much in common. We really were just kind of party friends. And so when that lifestyle went away from me, those friendships kind of fell by the wayside. And then I had those friends who are still my good friends to this day, who are the people who can have a glass of wine once a week and take it or leave it. Um, and again, like, I did talk to a few of my friends about my concern,
Okay.
that, do you think I drink too much, or is it too much, whatever. And I had a friend.
Looking for someone to co-sign.
Yeah,
Your,
yes, co-sign my bullshit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I did have one of my dearest friends say, if you're worried, why don't you just go to AA sometime?
Hey,
And
what a
that was
great.
really the only, right? Like, that was the only time someone suggested it. And of course I was like, oh no, I don't need to do that. No, that's fine. But again, the people who were around me only saw what really I let them see. And nobody really knew how bad it was until finally I was like, okay, I need to stop. And this is how bad it was. Like, I
Right.
got arrested, I was in the hospital. And of course, then it was like, oh, people have been super kind and supportive. And I think there's always a little bit of a settling down period where people don't know if they should invite you places.
Mhm.
They don't want you to be triggered, but they don't want you to feel left out. And so I tell people it usually takes a good year, get
Mhm.
through every season, every birthday party, every holiday, for it to normalize kind of for everybody.
Yeah,
And
I get that.
yeah.
I just wondered because we have a couple members on Sobriety Engine that are, have stated like, oh, I got sober and now, my friends don't talk to me, or don't, or
Yeah.
don't accept me. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, just be who you are. And if that's,
Yeah.
if no one accepts you for that, then, kick rocks.
They're
Like,
not your people.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Okay, so we have someone that's raising their hand, so I'm going to have them talk and either give a comment or a question. So
Okay.
this is Leo. Hey, Leo, go ahead. I'm unmuting you. Leo?
Yeah, I'm here. Hello.
Hey.
Thoroughly enjoying the webinar. Thank you very much for sharing. 4-decade drunk and I've been okay for about 9 years. And I made a point. I wore more masks than you could. It was amazing. And one of the Heath Ledger, before he passed away, in the second last role was the Joker,
Mm.
and he had that mask on, the Joker's mask. So those of us that are still in the disease, I see him because I can tell I got a mask on. I don't know, just an observation. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I think you're totally spot on. I think it's, any kind of, like I said, whether you're drinking or drugging or the eating disorder or whatever addiction, it really is like the mask you put on to deal with whatever you're dealing with. And it's kind of like the solution. For me, that's what I always thought alcohol was like. It's the solution to the problem, and then it became the problem. And it's funny that we use the term mask right now, and now we all have to wear masks. There we go. So coming full circle.
Right. Oh my, I know. I went to Whole Foods the other day, and I was like, everybody in there, I was like, what is life coming to right now? This is a completely new world than I thought 2020 was going to be,
Yeah. Crazy.
Okay, we have another question from Gail, and she says, hi, I'm interested in learning to recognize when I'm being drawn into a self-sabotaging situation before it's too late, no matter the type, be it relationship issues, relapse, etc. And I know we talked about journaling, and maybe going back, but going back and reading that, what would you say? And as, a recovery coach.
Yeah, I would say, go back even further, because you can see after the fact, oh, that was self-sabotage, but what's leading you to that place, right? Like maybe where you're meeting people, you're starting a relationship, look in that place. What questions are you asking?
Yeah.
What's your headspace like? And when people are drinking, a lot of times they hear the self-sabotage, like, I really set out to not drink, but then I went to the party and ... Like, don't go to the party. Like and I'm not saying you're never going to go to a party again. There's going to be a million parties for the rest of your life. So, you're not going to miss out by not going to this one thing, but plan in advance. So that you don't, you have to put yourself in a little bit of a bubble at first. And especially if this is a pattern, like, look at why you kind of got to that situation in the first place, whether it was the party or the too many drinks around, or going to the bar, or being with the guy you're not supposed to be with, or whatever. Pre-planning is important.
I know for me, it was like, I put myself in those situations because I was so uncomfortable with the way I felt about myself. So it was like, oh, I'm going to go to this part. Like, my friends are going to this party. I'm going to go, and whatever I drank, whoops. Here I am.
Yeah.
And it was getting right with my own self. And the past issues and trauma, that I had dealt with, so that was a huge issue. And so Gail also asked another question. She's wondering how, and I don't know if this is like a little left field for you, but how being in a past relationship with a narcissist affects our thinking. I know I'm a people pleaser and working on that, but how about more subtle changes in thinking?
Ooh, that's a lot to unpack there, but I think there's a lot of good information out there about, codependency, which really being, I think, when you're with a narcissist, whether you got there by your, and you were totally blindsided, or whether that's the kind of person that you found yourself with, generally, I shouldn't say generally, but the people who I've worked with who've dealt with this, it's this idea of being helpful and wanting to help someone, and wanting maybe to change somebody, and wanting someone to love you enough to change for you. And so I think just getting to the bottom of codependency, and there's a ton of great books about that. And
and narcissists and codependents, man, what a combination of
oh yeah match made in I don't know where, but
well, thank you so much. So I guess, where can we find your book? A lot of people always are looking for book recommendations on Sobriety Engine. So where can we find your book and just more about you?
Yeah. So right now you can go to your favorite bookstore's website, and you can order it through them or Amazon, of course. but it's independently sold too. So you can go to your independent bookstore and support them. It's on Audible, audio, it's on Libro FM, so if you like to listen to it instead. And then you can go to my website, it's called highlightreallife.com, and it's REAL. And you can find out more about me and my Instagram and everything else you ever want to know and more.
Perfect. Well, Emily, thank you so much. You're such an inspiration, and just I appreciate you being here. So
Yeah, thanks for having me.
on in a couple months or so. I'd really appreciate it. So
yeah, for sure.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, and
thanks, Tori.
Soon. Bye.
Bye.